You ever watch someone fumble a billion-dollar empire so hard it makes you question if they were ever actually good at anything? Because that's Salt Bae right now. Salt Bae's latest fall from grace came after this year's Champions League final, where he reportedly attempted to enter a private after-party without an invitation, only to be turned away at the door. The moment felt like a metaphor for his career. Once a viral sensation welcomed everywhere, he's now more often kept at a distance. So, where's Salt Bae today? He's still operating his chain of restaurants, primarily in the Middle East, but he's a far cry from the global icon he once was. The man who once sprinkled salt into meme legend now stands as a reminder of how quickly internet fame can vanish. He lost his mind, his credibility, and apparently his ability to read a room. Because while his empire was collapsing around him, this man was still out here, trying to crash football events like he invented the sport. It's giving main character syndrome meets reality check, and the internet has been eating it up like it's free entertainment, which, let's be honest, it basically is at this point. But to understand how spectacularly Salt Bae fumbled the bag, we need to rewind to when he actually had one. Back in 2017, Salt Bae was just a regular butcher in Istanbul until he posted a 36-second video of himself sprinkling salt down his arm. That clip got 16 million views and turned him into an overnight sensation. Suddenly, every celebrity wanted to eat at his restaurant, pay ridiculous prices for gold-covered steak, and watch him perform his little salt dance. It was peak internet culture meets fine dining. And for a while, it actually worked. The man was charging $1,000 for steaks wrapped in gold leaf that you could buy on Amazon for $10. But people didn't care because they weren't just buying food. They were buying the experience, the Instagram moment, the chance to say they ate at the viral chef's restaurant. Salt Bae became a living tourist attraction, and his restaurant in Dubai, Miami, London, and New York were packed with influencers and celebrities willing to drop serious cash for a photo op. But here's the thing about building your entire empire on a meme. Memes have expiry dates, and Salt Bae started going bad the moment he decided that being internet famous meant he could do whatever he wanted wherever he wanted. The first major red flag was in 2018 when he posted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro at his Istanbul restaurant, while the Venezuelan people were literally starving and facing one of their worst economic crises in history. But Salt Bae was out.
Antes lo llamaban el rey de los bistecs y ahora sus restaurantes están vacíos. Vendía cortes de carne por $2.000, pero hoy la gente no quiere pagar ni 50. Todo comenzó en 2017, cuando se volvió una estrella viral gracias a su peculiar forma de servir los bistecs, gafas de sol, movimientos teatrales
Argentina
y una pizca de sal.
just won the World
En cuestión
Cup,
de días,
and
se
while the
hizo
players
famoso
were
en todo el
celebrating
mundo.
one of football's greatest moments, Salt decided to make it about himself. This man somehow snuck onto the pitch, started grabbing players for selfies, and literally snatched the World Cup trophy out of their hands. The audacity was astronomical. I mean, Messi's face said everything you needed to know about how inappropriate this was. But Salt Bae was too busy performing for the cameras to notice he was making everyone uncomfortable. The internet absolutely destroyed him for it. FIFA launched an investigation and banned him from all future official events. The same man who once had celebrities lining up to eat at his restaurants was now blacklisted from major sporting events. But did he learn his lesson? Of course not. Because earlier this year, he tried to crash a Champions League after-party and got publicly escorted out by security like any other party crasher. He tried to play it off, but the second-hand embarrassment was off the charts. But while Salt Bae was busy embarrassing himself on the world stage, his restaurant empire was quietly falling apart behind the scenes. Turns out when you build your business on spectacle instead of substance, people eventually catch on. His New York location got absolutely roasted by food critics, with one calling it New York's worst restaurant. The London location scraped a 2-star rating on TripAdvisor and was ranked near the bottom of over 23,000 restaurants in the city. People were paying premium prices for what many described as average food at best. And the reviews reflected that harsh reality. But the real tea came from his former employees who started spilling about what it was really like working for Salt Bae. Multiple lawsuits revealed a workplace culture that was allegedly toxic as hell. Workers claimed he withheld tips, forced them to work 72-hour weeks without overtime, and created an environment where people were afraid to speak up. One lawsuit resulted in a $230,000 settlement, and immediately after he fired the employees who sued him. The optics were terrible, but Salt Bae seemed more concerned with protecting his image than addressing actual problems. The most horrifying incident happened during one of his signature tableside fire shows in 2018. Four customers got burnt, including a young model who suffered third-degree burns over 35% of her body. Now, instead of taking responsibility or showing any remorse, Salt went radio silent. No apology, no public statements, nothing. It was like the incident never happened in his mind. But the internet doesn't forget, and neither do the people who got hurt. So as the controversies piled up, customers started doing the maths and asking uncomfortable questions. Why were they paying $55 for a Heineken? Why was a Red Bull $30? What exactly were they getting for their money besides watching a guy with sweaty arms sprinkle salt on overpriced meat? The luxury experience that once felt exclusive started feeling like AS. And people began staying away in the masses. This is evident because numbers don't lie. Salt Bae's U.S. empire has shrunk from 7 locations to just 2 in the past couple of years. His Beverly Hills flagship, once a symbol of his success, officially shut down in June 2025. The London location saw profits drop by over 30%, and even his Dubai restaurant was struggling to fill tables. These weren't just bad months or seasonal dips. This was a systematic collapse of a brand that had lost all its credibility with its target audience. And so, in a desperate attempt to save his failing restaurants, Salt Bae did something that completely contradicted everything he built his brand on. He slashed prices. The same man who once said, "Quality is never expensive," quality never expensive, was suddenly offering discounts like a clearance sale at a dime mall. It was the ultimate admission that his pricing was never about quality in the first place. But even with lower prices, people weren't coming back. The damage to his reputation was too severe and the trust was gone. But the most pathetic part of this whole saga is watching Supper refuse to accept reality. Even as his restaurants closed and his reputation crumbled, he was still posting receipts of expensive bills on social media like they were trophies. And he was still trying to crash exclusive events like he was still relevant. The man was living in a fantasy where his 15 minutes of fame never ended, but the rest of the world had moved on. What makes Salt Bae's downfall so satisfying to watch is that it was entirely self-inflicted. He had everything handed to him on a silver platter: viral fame, celebrity endorsements, a global brand, and millions of dollars in revenue. All he had to do was not be a complete disaster of a human being, and he couldn't even manage that. Instead of focusing on making good food and treating his employees well, he chose to chase clout and controversy at every turn. So the lesson here isn't just about Salt Bae. It's about what happens when you mistake viral fame for actual talent, when you prioritize performance over substance, and when you think being a meme makes you untouchable. Supper built his empire on a 36-second video, but he destroyed it with years of bad decisions, toxic behavior, and an ego that wrote checks his actual skills couldn't cash. Now he's left with a handful of struggling restaurants, a reputation in shambles, and the internet using him as a cautionary tale about the dangers of believing your own hype. The man who once sprinkled salt on steaks for A-listers is now just another washed-up influencer desperately trying to stay relevant in a world that's already forgotten why he was famous in the first place. So, it does in fact seem that Salt Bae has finally lost it all. But let me know in the comments if you think he can somehow make a comeback from this, and I'll see you in the next one.